Here in Appalachian country, some nights are just a little spookier than others. And tonight is one of those nights that the vibes are not real bad off, they're just a little bit spookier than normal. Don't look at me that way, Scully. You're spooky enough on your own. You and your red lights. Yeah, I said what I said. Well, hello, my spooky friends. Yes, the gang's all here. Here is Sachi and her tail. Gully, if you're new to this channel, I'm Silky, and this is Lizzie Borden. And somebody said, why does Lizzie Borden just hang out there? Well, y'all, if you don't know, because I have another true crime channel, I wrote a book about Lizzie Borden. And if you think she's guilty, I can prove you wrong. And that's what that book is called. And that's why Lizzie likes to hang out with us. Because she is an innocent, misrepresented woman who just wants a fair shot. Isn't that right, Lizzie? Yes. So, anyway, that book is on Amazon. Lizzie Borden, The Lies Behind the Legend. I don't know what to say about you. You're going to be a rough one tonight, aren't you? Okay, so tonight, I know you say you love the stories more than the TikToks, but stories are hard to come by. So, I was looking around ye old Reddit, and a lot of you like the Appalachian stories, as do I, although I am more in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Really, kind of thank goodness. But I found a Reddit thread about Appalachia and I found it very interesting. So let's hop on over there and read this. It's quite unnerving. All right, and this is under the subreddit Paranormal, and the user is called Doobie Doopie. Am I saying that right? I'm going to put my glasses on, y'all. And I don't think she's going to stop. Yes, Doobie Doopie. Okay, it says, I live in the heart of Appalachia, and this is easily the most terrifying story of one of my experiences. This story may be short or it may be drawn out. I'm recounting these events as I type, as it was honestly one of the most horrifying things I have experienced, and it brings me genuine stress to think about it. This happened maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I live in southern West Virginia and have my entire life. The woods and mountains surround every direction you look, and nighttime is a darkness that you can never dream of unless experienced. I was with a friend, I'll call him Mark. Mark was at my house one evening doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox, etc. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail to, how do I say this? Puff Puff Pass. This was not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it is easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. We finally got to about halfway into the trail, about 30 minutes in, where we stop, pack our cigarette, and stand on the trail to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There are always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for the time was unsettling. At this point, it was probably past 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finished smoking and continued our walk, when almost immediately the forest fell dead quiet. As soon as the forest goes quiet, there is a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking humanoid voice, shaky and uncertain, almost like an old children's toy, like the ones with the crackly speakers and robotic voice, if you know what I mean. This immediately sets us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get closer per se, but no matter how far we ran down the trail, this eerie voice remains the same volume, going over and over with no quieting or stopping. At this point, I'm convinced that we are in genuine danger, something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, gasping for breath and almost at the verge of tears of how frightening this was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there is a bone shaking, heart stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us. I know what a mountain lion sounds like. This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie. The scream sent birds flying from nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most genuinely depraved and violent scream I have ever heard. This is a true story that I have only told to maybe 3 people, all of whom seem to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe I encountered something inhuman in those woods. Edit. I know I will receive questions such as what the voice was possibly saying, or to explain the area and what happened after. I genuinely cannot remember what the voice was saying, if anything intelligible. I don't know if I could understand it then, and I certainly can't recall understanding it after several years of blocking it out of my memory. All that I can recall is that it was a fluctuating voice in pitch, shaking, almost just joining sounds together. After running from the scream at the end of the trail, we ran to the car, which was only about 5 minutes more from the trail, so we got there relatively fast from the sprinting. Now, if you've been listening to these stories from other people from Appalachia or even people who have written in to my channel, um, we have things in Appalachia that people call mimics. Some people think they're skinwalkers, and very few people actually see them and then return to tell us what they saw. Um, Most of the stories you hear are from people who hear a mimicking voice. Sometimes I've heard it say that it's robotic. A lot of times people say that it sounds just like someone they know, a friend that they're with, or even like their own voice. But the thing is the people that tell us this get away from it. Like they always have some kind of heads up and they run and they don't follow the voice. I guess the ones that do are the missing. What are these things? Well, we don't really know. Some people say wendigos. Again, that can be interchanged with mimic and skinwalker. Things that you just know. It's that sense of, again, when everything goes silent in the woods, you better get out of there because there is some kind of predatory creature. And usually it's not one that is natural to that area. Okay. Now, I wanted to go on because it's scary enough, the story, but it's interesting what the people, I was very fascinated by the stories and the things that people said in the comments. So let's follow it on down. Now, this is a comment by Ratch1874, and this was only 6 months ago. Oh, wow. I feel this in my bones. My uncle, mom's brother, has had a farm in southeast West Virginia since the 70s, long before I came into this world. Mom is the oldest of 5, and my uncle built a bunch of houses on the farm so the family could use it whenever. Some lived there, and other, like my family, visited often. My mom and older sister and I would go for weeks on end to spend some time with family, and I always loved it because I have a ton of cousins and was the baby for a long time. So mostly I tagged along with my cousins and felt extremely safe, like it was my happy place. I don't really remember anything totally out of the ordinary when I was really little, other than I remember an imaginary friend who I exclusively played with at the farm. Nowhere else, and we moved extensively for Dad's job, so I lived in many different places. What I remember after age 5 was suddenly being old enough to not have someone walk me to and from other houses, which I thought was so cool. So I used to explore. My uncles liked to bow hunt, and had taken me a few times not far into the woods, so I was able to go back on my own and find their little tree platforms they had built to hunt from. I thought they were like cool little tree houses. Your story sounds a lot like the very last time I ever took off by myself in the woods without another family member with me. It was the winter. I wanted to be out in the snow and explore. So I found my way up the mountain. That is what I called it, but in fact, it was probably just a massive hill, and into the trees. I couldn't find the spot I was looking for and got pretty frustrated with my 8-year-old self. So I sat down by a creek to catch my breath and figure out where I was. I couldn't have been sitting more than about 3 minutes when something let out a scream I can only describe as blood curdling. I thought it was a fox, most likely, until I heard another voice crying, just weeping and wailing, and the sorrow was palpable. My cousin had always told scary stories about Appalachia, and I figured that they had followed me into the woods and were trying to scare the pants off of me for shots and giggles. I called out like, "Okay, guys, not funny. Okay, I'm going home. Enough," and followed my footprints in the snow as fast as I could back to the farm. The screaming and crying didn't stop, stayed consistent as I moved, which really made me convinced it had to be my cousins. I don't think I heard words, just crying and screaming, but it wasn't pleasant. Made my way back to the main house, my uncle's house, which was the biggest on the property and visible from the edge of the woods, and absolutely booked it. Ran full tilt to get to the kitchen door. I remember getting through the door and slamming it behind me because I was a combo of terrified and annoyed that my cousins were playing a prank on me. The next closest cousin in age is 9 years older than me, and so I was often the butt of pranks. Well, wouldn't you know, every family member was accounted for in the living room and kitchen. The older male cousins and my uncles were in the kitchen putting their snow boots and coats on to come look for me. I had apparently been gone for several hours and they were worried. According to my mom, I was white faced. My hands were covered in scratches through my mittens. I guess I must have fallen or something. They were so worried. I had disappeared. I should add, I set off from my aunt's to walk to my uncle's and had decided to take a detour and didn't tell anyone. Oops, I was 8 and I really didn't think about how that might be bad. Mom said I looked like I had seen a ghost. I asked if anyone had come out to the woods to look for me. They said no, we had been looking at the different houses and we were just about to come look for you because they saw my footprints head into the woods. I told them about where I went and what I heard, and my uncle, whose property it was, says, "Oh, I think you probably ran into the witch." The witch? I'm over here thinking, oh, some crazy lady lives in the woods, and I probably stumbled near her cottage. No, the witch was just what they called the unknown entity that roamed the woods, crying, screaming, mimicking people's voices, and just giving people a good old sense of doom and dread. No one had a straight answer about possible folklore or anything like that, but all my older cousins had their own experiences with similar happenings over the years. Scared the living daylights out of me, and while I've been back to the farm over the years, I can tell you that I have never once set foot near the woods tree line again, even as an adult. I was grateful my family didn't think I was crazy, but they said a general rule was not to be in the woods alone, so I listened. To my knowledge, nothing physical ever happened with anyone in this entity, more of a prankster than anything. But oof, the Appalachia has some wild stuff. I definitely remember some strange stuff happening during the week we had my aunt's funeral when I was 21, and random voices or red eyes or smoke apparitions on the wood's edge. But I never went to check them out after that one incident. Edit. I should add that 100% of the family was at the farm that trip was accounted for at my uncle's house, getting ready to come look for me. So if it was anything other than something supernatural, it was not from anyone staying at the farm. Wow. So that was crazy. Um, that's terrifying. Now, also look at Black Cat Spat says the Scottish Highlands and Appalachian Mountains are part of the same mountain range before the Pangea split. Now, see, I didn't realize that. Did y'all know that? I guess you know what Pangea is. Like all of the continents used to be together, like one big blob, and then they split. And you can see, like, if you look at the map, at the continents, you can see where they all went together. So I did not. It's kind of weird though, because if you listen to the music of the Scottish Highlands, you listen to that kind of music, and then you listen to Appalachian, and it's like, didn't there weren't people here though from Scotland? Didn't we settle? But it's weird how the Appalachian music sounds very much, minus the bagpipes, okay, but very much like Scottish. A lot of the same flavor. So I can really see that. I think that's weird, but I honestly didn't know that. So I learned something. Research the legend of the screaming banshee in Scotland certainly makes you wonder. Yeah, I have read about the banshee. That's a big thing in England, and maybe during spooky season we'll talk about the banshee. Maybe that's something that we'll do just for history spooky night. We'll do some different stuff for next month. We have Rogue Kitten 91 who says, I grew up in North Carolina within Appalachia. My family is Irish. I know I've heard a banshee. The scream was part animal, part human. I've never heard anything. Now, I also thought I would mention this. I have not listened to it yet, so I can't tell you if it's good or not, but I thought it was interesting. We have a reply from Vicious Hillbilly who says, I'm a fifth generation Ozarker who currently lives in the middle of the Ozarks. The Ozarks are much older than Appalachia. I don't really understand. Okay. Isn't the Earth the same age? But maybe it's, I don't know. The geological core of the Ozark dates back to about 1.5 billion years, while Appalachia is about 480 million. Oh, we're just youngsters, I see. I lived near Appalachia for several years and have just moved back home. People are so focused on Appalachia that they forget about the Ozarks. The Ozarks sit right smack on the 37th parallel. Look that up. We have so many monsters, paranormal events here. I think I will look that up. My sister and I do a podcast called Ozark Haints and Hooch. We'll never exhaust all the stories. So I think that's interesting. I just thought I'd throw that out there because if you're looking for a podcast, Ozarks, Haints, and Hooch. I don't know. Go check it out. It might be, it might be really good. Sounds like they got a lot of good stories. I do not know them, so please, I'm not saying it's good. I don't know. I'm just saying I saw it in the comments, and y'all spooky people might enjoy it. Okay, and I'm going to end on one more comment. This is by Shambles196. I just saw a video about a hunter who was in that area and was hunting at night. He fell asleep and was awakened late at night by a Bob White call. If you don't know it's a certain bird call. Some of you probably know, if you're from the country, you know what I'm talking about. Which you do not vocalize at night, vocalize at night. I did not know that. Okay, I don't know about that. There was a reply from nearby. He moved from the spot he was at across the clearing and waited. He saw a spindly humanoid thing on all fours go up and sniff the spot he had just been. Oh my God. Okay. He had just been. Oh my God. Then stand up and give a Bob White call again, which was answered. He shot over the head of the creature, which then called in a human female voice, I'm hurt. Help me. Hello? Oh, y'all. Realized I just had the weirdest thing happen. My page just went crazy. Okay, I can finish it this way. Um, He realized he was being stalked by something that was not remotely human. He shot at it, then bolted for his truck. My great grandmother lived in this area too. When we went up to her house, there were rules. You never leave the yard. You never go in the woods alone, not one step. You never answer if your name is called. You never go toward the sound of that voice, not even if you recognize it. There are things in the woods, and they are not nice. I've heard they are called mimics because they mimic the human voice. Okay, I don't know. I've had some weird stuff going on with my computer and my house lately, so I don't know. Um that's weird. But anyway, yeah. So, it reminded me of a thing I used to do. I say I did not nobody ever told me about the Bob White call. So I am which I kind of understand at night cuz Bob Whites don't call at night, I don't think. Um I've never heard one. But I do remember doing that. It was a signal, supposed to be a signal between me and my friends in the daytime in the woods when I was younger. It was, I don't know, a crazy idea that I got from somewhere. And it was hard. I could whistle a little bit then. I'm not a very good whistler, but and my neither were my friends, but we were out in the woods and I did do a Bob White call just to make sure because I couldn't when we lost sight of each other instead of yelling, we were supposed to do a Bob White call. And I made my feeble attempt, but I was fairly certain if she was anywhere close, she could hear it. And I got a really clear answer, very, very clear. And so later on, I told her when we did come back together and whatever, I said, "Man, you certainly have improved with your whistling." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "When you answered my call, it was so good." She's like, "I didn't hear you." She said, "I didn't whistle. I didn't do a Bob White call." And I was like, "What?" So I didn't know. I thought, well, I guess I called a real Bob White. I guess the bird answered me. But now I'm second guessing that and I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Maybe it was something way more sinister." Anyway, I hope you enjoyed these tales from Appalachia. If you did, comment below and tell me where you are from. Have you ever heard Appalachian stories before, or is there a region that you would like for me to research and talk about? In the meantime, y'all be safe out there. Be careful because, there are mimics out there in them there woods. But whatever you do, just stay spooky. Bye bye.